The Badgers will travel to Evanston to take on Northwestern this Saturday, 2:30 p.m. kick on BTN. I'll turn it over to Coach Leonhard for some opening comments, then we can take questions.
Good morning. Obviously, a unique week here with Wisconsin football, but trying to focus the guys and give ourselves a great opportunity to win a big game in the Big Ten West. So, it's been a little bit of a scramble the last couple of days just to get everybody settled down and settled in and dealing with a lot of emotions with the staff, with the players. But I love where we're at this point of the week. I think we're doing as well as we can be and giving our guys the best opportunity to go down there and get a win.
Mike's on both sides. Jeff?
Jim, you mentioned the scramble. I mean, guys in the pros are probably accustomed to something like this happening, maybe in the middle of a season. College guys, maybe not so much. Are you concerned with how the players in the locker room will handle it this week and what they might be like on Saturday, where their mind might be at?
Absolutely a huge concern, right? We have emotional guys. These are young guys. I mean, even the staff, and I mentioned it in the opening press conference. We're all here because of what Paul Chris had done and the trust that he had in us. So very emotional on our floor as well as the players. So, I mean, really initially felt like there's very little I can say to this team to handle that emotion in the moment. It hurt a lot of guys and had a lot of conversations with the team individually as units and then starting to reach out to individual guys as well, just because everyone's going to handle it a little bit differently. And I guess my message to the team kind of starting yesterday, kind of let it settle in, get out of the building a little bit, let it hurt. Brought them back in the morning for a team workout, wanted to look them all in the eyes at the same time and just say we kind of a big lesson we got to learn is how to compartmentalize the emotion of it. Not trying to brush it aside, not trying to make it go away, but we have to be able to focus, right? These guys got a ton on their plate as far as the school, what they're hearing from home, and obviously the football side being a huge change. So being able to compartmentalize really the emotion of it to get done what you need to, whether that's the football side, the meetings on the field or school, we have to learn the lesson of being able to kind of turn on and off the emotions, which is a huge lesson. That's a hard one as it is. And I think as a staff, it's no different, right? We have to be able to do the same thing because kickoff set, the clock is ticking. We got to find a way to get a win and kind of get things back settled down.
Jim, an offshoot of that, do you find yourself listening as much as talking when you're talking about those emotions? I mean, is it important to you to kind of let people inside this program vent or just get those emotions out and before you give messages?
Yeah, I think that's a huge piece. I pride myself on kind of being able to sit back and read a room, and no different now, right? These guys are going to hurt in different ways. Some are going to be more vocal, some are going to be very emotional, and then maybe realize they overstepped, and you just got to be able to navigate that as a coach and understand it's real, it's there for a reason, and I feel like we've done a decent job of kind of calming and settle things down, right? That doesn't change what happened, doesn't change the kind of uphill battle we have going with this week, kind of being unique, right, different in this program, but I feel like we're going on the right direction, right? We're headed down the right path to give them the best chance to win, and we're playing a team at home that's always given us trouble at their place, and we gotta bring our A game going in there. We gotta play much cleaner football than we have been, right? That's why we're in this situation. So I got a ton of respect for the vision Coach Chris had for this team. We're going to follow it through, and we're going to start playing better football just as the players envisioned it, just as the staff and the coaches have as well.
Steve.
I know you said, obviously, your 5-game resume isn't what you want, but I'm just wondering the wide-open nature of this division. Every team in the division has at least one conference loss. How is that something that maybe can motivate y'all for the rest of the season, even with everything you're going through right now, the fact that if you can turn things around, this might still be for the taking, perhaps?
I think that's the huge part of trying to take the emotion out of it. All right, guys, take a look at what the big picture is. We start playing good football, we're okay. Right, we still are in position to reach a lot of the goals that we set at the beginning of the year, and you got to take it a game at a time. We got to turn it around, right? We have to start playing good football and winning games. But that's, like I said, it's the sky falling down a little bit of pump the brakes. Let's take a big picture look of where we're at in the Big Ten and start to get this thing going the right direction, because you string together some games and all of a sudden you're a dangerous team again.
Jim, I know you're talking about the current players, but even kind of looking on the recruiting side of things, and I know you can't talk about players by name, but the current verbal commitments or commits, how have you messaged them, the program messaged them, and what are you telling them at this moment as well?
Yeah, big conversations that we're having with those guys, and really excited for the response that we're getting. I think we have a number of kids interested in this program that see Wisconsin for what it is, right? The true culture of what this place is, the work ethic, the people, everything we preach, right, is about what this place is and who it is. And I think the guys' response has been very solid as far as their commitment to this place and the vision that we've told and how we're going to get it done. We still got work to do, right? We got a lot of work to do and a lot of conversations to be had. Myself, reaching out to a number of different people, but the response has been very positive and encouraging by a young group of guys that, a lot of times the biggest question is, what does this mean for me, right? What does this change anything for me? And I think just like with our team and the staff, it's kind of calming everybody down and trusting. We still believe you are going to be a difference maker in this program, and that the vision for this place will continue on and hopefully get stronger.
Jim, Sunday you said you were still kind of figuring things out with the coaching staff and how things were going to run. Where are you at with the decisions about you calling the defensive plays, and has anything changed on the offensive side since this coaching change?
Yeah, first off, defensively, early in the week we're able to kind of operate as normal, right? We're putting the plan together as a staff. Obviously, how you script practices, how we script practices, nothing really has to change. I'm going to have a lot of conversations as this week goes on and getting through practices on what is right, like what's going to be right for this team. That's where I got to use some of the resources I have. What's reality, right? What's reality, me going into kind of a unique situation for the first time, having to deal with more things on game day. Is it possible? Is it smart? Is it the right thing to do? I have a ton of confidence in this defensive staff that even if I had to step back, we're gonna execute what we need to on game day. Offensively, it's been more of the questions of how can I support you, right? We took a big piece kind of out of the offensive planning and operations. So what's the best way that we can support you to really, in very short notice, have to get this game plan together in a little bit different way? So response with Coach Ingram has been awesome. I like guys how they bounce back and just buckle down, get to work. Clean day of practice today. Plenty of things to clean up, like the effort. The energy was high, which was pleasing to see. And as always during a game week, we got to clean up a lot of details before we get to Saturday.
Jim, you mentioned earlier in general about playing clean football. Now, obviously, your focus has been defense, but now that you're in charge of the team, what do you want to see from the offense? Because obviously, Paul and Bobby and those guys expected more from what the units provided so far. What do you want to see from them?
I think we've always prided ourselves on, physical style of play, obviously up front, and we're going to run the ball and play action, right? We're going to work our play action game off of that. To me, I just want clean football, right? I mean, penalties, all phases, we got to clean things up, right? We have to tighten up what we do if that's what gets it done, but we got to demand these guys to be accountable for style of play, right? I think we've been getting outplayed, right? We've been getting outplayed, and that's why the last two games have ended the way they have, and that's been our calling card, right? We're going to out-physical you. We're going to outplay you, right? We're going to see if you're willing to sit in there for 4 quarters and just battle. And it looks different ways, right? I'm not saying you can't score a lot of points. I'm not saying you can't attack the perimeter or have to play great on the perimeter. We know that defensively and offensively we have to make plays and be dynamic on the edges. Inside, we have to play clean football, and we can't shoot ourselves in the foot. And, offensively with some of the injuries and just who's available, right, we have to find a way, right? What's the best 11, right? What are the issues we can cause, right? How can we impact the defense? You know, that's having my defensive background. Like, what issues are you going to cause somebody? That's the biggest thing that I think about when I organize a defense. So using the best 11 we have, right? Getting those matchups right based off the situations, get them on the field, and let's go attack, right? Let's cause some problems.
Hey, Jim. Graham said Saturday after the game that the leaders and captains have to really step it up a notch, and obviously he couldn't anticipate what was to come Sunday. But what have you seen from some of your captains and vocal leaders to help rally the troops per se ahead of Saturday?
I think the message, really, coaches, players alike, we had a lot of tough conversations before this news broke coming out of that game. And, you know, the messaging in this building is always very consistent with what we expect, what we demand of our players to hold each other accountable. And to me, it's time to show it. You know, there is no special talk. There is no players-only meeting. There is only coaches-only meeting, right? It's getting it done at this point, right? We know the issues, right? We know we have to play better. There's no talking anymore. Like, it's time to get it done. And that's what I'm excited about. It's the action piece of it. Obviously, there was big change, which is kind of shook the program, but I think the focus becomes, how do you focus on getting yourself better? How do you focus on getting your group better as a player and as a coach? And that's really the only way we're going to dig our way out of this. So that's what I'm excited for, because the message really before the news of Coach Christ was, like, we got to stop talking, guys. We actually just have to go put in the work and get it done. Like, the results have to start showing up. And there's plenty of plays every week that it's there, and you say, we got a chance, right? But there's enough every single week here that can or have gotten us beat, and we just got to focus on becoming a smarter team and take advantage of our opportunities.
Leanne, back.
You talked about letting the guys feel their emotions. I'm curious what these past 24 to 48 hours have been like for you, and if you've been able to kind of settle and process some of your emotions.
Yeah, it's been hard for me to deal with it. You know, Coach Chris was a good friend, obviously a mentor, and somebody I respected a ton. You know, you talk about the commitment to Wisconsin football, that was that man. So definitely shaken as far as how this happened, but at the same time you have to move on. The show's going on, so it's trying to pick and choose my moments to be emotional, and at the same time I've had a lot of thoughts, right? Had a lot of ideas. Now it's trying to just talk to who I need to, like what's a very short-term answer and solution that we can help get things going the right direction, and the long term is, like, to me, I'm not concerned. It's much more day to day, week to week in this scenario for me, just to try to get things settled down. And right, if there's things that we need to change, let's change it. Right, let's have communication on what's the best way to get it done, be more efficient, get the results we want, knowing that in the long term, there might be things that change down the line.
Roll.
Jim, you guys usually go over kind of the film the game before on Sunday. Just curious, I'm sure that was impacted, and the prep for this weekend was impacted. Just curious when you guys were able to kind of begin game prep and what the day-to-day has been like. Yeah,
I mean, Sunday morning was relatively normal for the staff. Like, we didn't know the conversations that were going on behind the scenes. Offensively and defensively are kind of handling a lot of the review of the game on their own. So we were able to kind of get through the issues and see, to me, really the lack of consistency in what we were doing. I think it was showing on both sides of the ball and on special teams. But I know I can speak on the defensive side. I mean, that game was such a mystery of, you call a play, you get the same exact play against you, and one goes for nothing, one goes for a big play for them. Like, that's the type of consistency that we've been dealing with. So, you know, which changes as a coach going, how do we get it? How do we get it, right? It's same call offense, same call defense. The consistency's not there. Is it a trust factor, right? Is it eyes? Like, what is the issue? That's where we went on defense of, how do we fix this thing? We make it as tight as we need to give guys confidence, right? They got to have confidence to go out there and get it done, and then they need to bring the consistency, right? They need to bring the energy and the consistency in what we're asking them to do. not going to speak on the offensive side because I wasn't in those meetings, and obviously, everything blew up to where we had to step away from it for a while. And I said it was really take a couple hours and handle the emotions of the team, right? Handle the emotions of yourself and the team, and then when we get back in here, we got to get to work because the game's coming soon. We adjusted our Monday schedule. We normally walk in the morning, and we moved it to the afternoon just to buy some time to just settle things down, give the coaches a little bit more of a normal timeline to prep for it. And I think we got where we needed to for today's practice, and hopefully moving forward for the rest of the week, kind of on a normal schedule for the coaches.
Yeah, Jim, you mentioned penalties, and that's been a focus on offense a lot, but there were 3 PI calls against your guys. 2, I think, were really critical. When you look back at that, did your guys execute the technique you guys were taught? Did you have any questions about why is that a call? We're doing what we're supposed to do. How did you see those calls?
Yeah, there was a couple that I would like to get answers for. Normally, that's part of that Sunday, Monday process of getting answers. What can we do differently? And I was trying on game day. Like, what can I tell my guys? Because situations where you're really getting, receiver initiating contact on you, going, what can I tell my guys to do, right? And a little bit of the answer was, it's chicken fighting. I'll never call it. I'm like, well, we're calling it. So trying to get answers for our guys because I thought they were in positions to have success, in positions to make plays. And obviously when you get flags in critical moments, it's not good for your team. It's not good for the morale. And that's when, to me, you kind of saw things start to break down. It was having things like that where all of a sudden you extend drives and then you just kind of saw the emotion and the energy on the sideline dip and changes the game, right? Changes the game. That we weren't good enough on Saturday to overcome that and those swings of emotion, which we have to get better at. But obviously we want to make sure we're coaching our guys correctly. And there's going to be plenty of 50-50 calls that we can't complain about. But to me, it's what's the answer? What can I give them to settle them down? Because obviously then they change. Then they change how they play, and you want them to have confidence in the techniques you're teaching them.
Mike?
Jim, you covered on this a little bit, but the beginning Saturday, does somebody on your staff get elevated? Do you share additional responsibilities across the staff? Will you promote? How does that work starting as soon as Saturday?
Right now, we're trying to work through that and figure out what's the best for week 1, week 2. Does this answer need to be handled before game day? Right, or can we operate as we've done? Obviously we know there's an opening, and we will work to fill that opening. It's just what's the correct way to do it and the timeline. But I love the staff. We know it's unique, man. We got to be all hands on deck, and we got to find a way to make sure we have the correct game plan and the correct coaching for those guys and give us the best chance moving forward. But a little bit to be determined, and obviously we want those answers sooner than later.
Mike?
Jim, Alexander Smith isn't on the injury report. Where is he at in his progression, and is there a chance you could have him on Saturday?
Yeah, Alexander is a guy I believe we'll finally have available. I think he's going to be able to practice here for us this week, and he's been working extremely hard in the rehab. Very frustrating process for him because an injury that has taken longer than anticipated, and by no fault of anyone, right? Your body handles things differently, and he had a couple setbacks, but I do think that he will be available this week if things go as anticipated throughout the course of the week.
Jim, when you go through something like this and you have assistant coaches, like you said, all hands on deck, has there been anybody that's impressed you with how they've maybe added to their plate or changed what they do on a daily basis, or has it been kind of just do what you do but extra?
I think everyone, defensively, the whole staff's had to pick up because I've had to bounce around a little bit. We've been able to meet and do all the things that we normally do. It's just had to look a little bit differently. So everyone's kind of stepped in. Coach D'Onofrio has been through this. Like he's seen it happen and just given little bits of advice on how they handled it, different places he was at, and offensively, it truly is all hands on deck. This is who's available. How do we get it done, right? So I've liked the approach of everyone. Obviously, I've had to handle enough of the defense, and I'm not going to micromanage that group, right? We're going to have a lot of conversations, right? We're going to make sure that we're doing things that we want to do. But at this point of the season, right, we know our guys. We know that group, right? We have to give them the best opportunity to execute on a Saturday. You can't blow anything up at this point. You have to continue to give the players things that they trust and have confidence in, not to say it's going to be the same, right? There are differences. There's lots of things that we can get to throughout the course of this season, but I'm excited to see, you know, the leadership on that side truly step up with the coaching and the players, and I think we got the right people to get it done.
Jim, I think it was only 3 Tuesdays ago, or you upstairs, we asked you about the Nebraska in-season coaching change, and you were very vocal on that. I mean, how do you square that with the situation you find yourself in now?
Yeah, thanks for remembering that. Obviously, my thoughts go to the players, right, and doing right by the players, because as a program, you know, as college football as a whole, right, it's about the kids. It's about the kids, student athletes. All making decisions like this makes things extremely difficult for student athletes, right? And not to say that it's bad decisions, not to say that decisions don't need to be made, right? There is a business element to college football, right? And then there's the human element. And I think it's difficult to handle that as a university. I think it's difficult to handle that as a player. And as a coach, you're caught right in between, right? And having to do both sides. So I'm excited for the opportunity, right? I hurt for the man who was sitting in this seat last week. But at the same time, I understand the business side of football, and that decisions need to be made, and that we have to execute, we have to perform. You have to see a thriving, you know, football team. And so that makes me excited that I can provide my experience and try to do what's right for our players, our staff, and this university going forward.
Jim, obviously on Sunday you expressed that you had mixed emotions about how this all came about, but are you in any way energized by the challenge that is before you? And football coaches are notoriously for trying to spin things positively. Have you said to your players, look, no one's going to expect us to get through this. We can attack this, and we can do something unique that people might not expect. Have you tried to frame it that way at all?
For me, it's been trying to just, one, get the group calmed down and understand that we still have confidence in this football team, right? We've played a lot of good football this season. Not enough, right? Not enough. So we still have confidence in this group that we can reach a lot of goals that we set. We have confidence that we can get this thing turned the right direction. The reality of we have not done enough, right? We have not done enough. We have to hold each other accountable and go out and execute. And one thing I've talked with our defense and really defensive backs a lot is you can have a great plan, right? You can have, you know, everything right. I talked going into Ohio State or out of Ohio State. We had a great week of practice. You get one opportunity to go execute, right? And you got to do it underneath the bright lights. So I think there's the performance side of what we do with our players, of getting them to understand that we have to show up in those moments, right? It doesn't matter. All the planning in the world, you know, having the right things, you got to go out there and execute in big moments, right? The pressure that these kids are under to go execute in these moments, we have to help them, right? With the plan, right? With the confidence we give them, with the reality of what the issues caused by the other team, right? And how games are going to play out. So I'm excited about that for our players, because I think that's been a very consistent message that I've given them. So when I get the opportunity to talk to them throughout the week going forward, I think there's a very consistent message of how I've approached them.
Got time for just a couple more. Jake?
Jim, looking at the preliminary status report, looked like didn't see Isaac Rendo or Keontae Lewis or Hayden Rucci. Just may I ask what their statuses are right now going forward for this week, if they're not on that status report right now?
Yeah. A number of guys, the names you mentioned, didn't finish the game last week, and a little bit too early in the week, right? Limited, possibly available, right? I think some slightly more doubtful than others, but a little bit too early in the week to tell. Not injuries that are clear necessarily in this situation. So I think there's a lot of questionable guys, a lot of guys banged up at this point in the season that we're going to find out throughout the course of the week, yes.
Steve?
You mentioned Mark D'Onofrio. I guess he went through this in Miami several years ago, but I was wondering if you've talked to or heard from any people who've been in the position you're in now, an interim head coach midway through the season, and if anybody's given you any advice on what you can do to kind of, I know, salvage, rescue, turn around a season when you're kind of thrown into this position?
I have not talked to anyone who's directly been in this position, but a number of people I respect, right? Family, friends, coaches, former players, you name it, people that have reached out to me and have had those conversations. And I said, number one, it's trusting that we want to carry on what Coach Christ had, right, as far as the messaging and what the goals of this team were. I'm going to do it my way, right? And that's the advice I got coming into coaching, right, was being genuine to who you are and what you believe in. Very, very open about that, right? How I handle the emotions, right, the messaging to the team, like, I'm going to be true to myself. I'm not going to try to echo what Coach Chris. The beauty is it's very consistent, right? My beliefs with football, his beliefs with football, our staff and our players. So that's the one thing that I do know is I'm going to handle this situation the way that I feel true to myself, right? That's a huge reason why I'm here is I don't think we've hit the expectations and the goals that I wanted when I came back to coach, and now I'm in a little bit different position to impact that, but the focus being on day-to-day currently, right? And we'll start to broaden maybe the picture of what this place is going to be as we get through week to week here and hopefully get some wins.
Time for one more, Jim.
Jim, from the outside, it would seem like one of the challenges for you is that Sunday morning you were colleague to a lot of these guys on the staff, or all these guys on the staff, right? And by Sunday night, you're their boss. Is that a challenge? And how do you get around that, especially when, like, you know, this is not a staff you put together? How difficult is that?
I think it's a big challenge, and just trying to be open and communicate with the guys on the staff of right now, let's focus on the guys. Let's focus on Northwestern, right? There's going to be big questions, and I know a lot of guys' heads go different places when a change like this happens, but to me it's understanding, like, there's not going to be drastic change, right, as this season goes on. We need to give these kids the best opportunity to win, and that's with the men in that room. And that's where I've been excited just to see the response of guys, and some very, very close. I've known Paul for a long time, so they're obviously taking things, or took things initially very, very difficult, and I think have been able to bounce back and focus, right, and kind of gets back to the message of the team as well, of being able to compartmentalize the emotions of this thing, because everyone's a little bit different level of investment with Coach Christ, and we have to be able to separate the emotions enough to get through and get the right plan and focus and move on to get wins. And then when it's time to let your guard down, go ahead, and giving them enough freedom to get out of the building and do that as well.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.